Hello, good evening, and thanks again for another edition of Ideas Exchange here on TVXYZ. This is a Wednesday program, and we come your way every evening from 8 to 9 p.m. Tonight, we want to look at a very sensitive threat. It is something many people anticipated will come to live with us. But the fact is, it appears it is getting out of hand, and if we don't act fast, it will blow up on our faces. And I want to catalog what may have created all this issue. And it has to do with what we have observed to be growing insecurity in the country. And you remember that just some days ago, there was some form of communal violence in Accra over land. And security personnel were clashing with residents, the youth, who appear to be emboldened. And I want you to share with me some of the issues you may know and why I have put them together for this very, very important conversation, because 2024 is around the corner. At a time when the nation appears polarized and the country seems to be agitated and many citizens become angry by the day because of some incidents or actions or inactions of several stakeholders, you would see, as I share on the screen, that there is increasing communal violence. Besides the increasing communal violence, we have mistrust in the security agencies. And that is very important. If citizens lose confidence in security agencies, you would appreciate why this conversation is very exciting. Military involvement in land disputes embolden citizens ready to clash with armed, uniformed personnel, shelved cases involving suspected police imposters caught on tape or viral videos perpetrating crime, or simply no update to satisfy public curiosity. Growing impunity, silence by many statesmen or senior citizens. Then we have anger triggered by leaked documents exposing scramble for state lands or wanton abuse of the public purse, while the taxpayer in tightened belt continues to sweat paying taxes to manage the economic crisis we are facing. Now, what will make you appreciate our topic tonight, which I'll share with you shortly, is a series of incidents within the last 2 months. The first was only yesterday, which I want to share with you. You remember that there has been some level of curfew in Boku, and so there is heavy military police presence with a number of security agencies who are patrolling the outskirts and the town itself. But yesterday, there was a lot of clashes, let me put it this way, between the two factions. And it was reported that they were using heavy weaponry to the extent that it took a long time for the military to bring the situation under control. And this happened only yesterday. June 4, 2022, that's just 3 days ago, the military and the youth clashed at Zamrama Line. And Zamrama Line is at Sukura, here in Accra, in a densely populated region. And then you see brave residents overpowering and arresting alleged land guards disguised as soldiers after a violent clash. They handed over them to the police amidst fears that there could be possible cover-up. Now, if you look at the video on the screen, you see somebody kneeling to shoot. That takes you back to Ejura when there was crowd control. And if, for example, you want to control a mob, you see from the video whether it is appropriate or we learnt lessons from the Ejura incident. June 1st, same month, Wa Upper West, angry youth of Wa stormed a police station demanding the release of 4 persons arrested for flogging lovebirds. May 18, I take you to Nkranza. And in Nkranza, we all know the incident. And these are young men who are bold enough to carry all those weapons because of the death of the gentleman you see on the screen. He was suspected to be an armed robber. He was in the custody of security agencies and he died. And residents became angry. And you see the lawlessness on the streets. And there were clashes between them and the police. And I'm sure you will hear them narrate why they were so angry. And to the extent that we saw the damage to many of the properties belonging to the state or suspects whose cars or other related assets have been destroyed. And this was in Nkranza on May 18th. April 9, 2022, I take you to another location. Akachi Volta region. 2 people were shot dead. 1 person died in the custody of the police, and the youth went on rampage. And what you see on the screen is about an angry youth or communities losing confidence in security agencies, whether it is the police or the military, and you see what is appearing to be unfolding by the day. July 27th, I'll take you to Ntonso, Ashanti region. Irate, that's January 27th, 2022. Irate residents attacked police officers, set vehicles ablaze. And what was the reason? Agona District Police Commander explained in an interview, and this is what he simply said. He said, it was involving a robbery incident. The station officer had intelligence and moved on it with the policemen to retrieve a tricycle and arrest the suspects. What happened? But the youth attacked them, chased them out, and set the car ablaze. Now, I want to recall 2 major incidents, one in 2020 and one in 2021. In March 2021, very pathetic, Ewutu Kwaubonze in the central region, 5 sustained gunshot wounds after men dressed in military uniform clashed with alleged land guards. What was the reason? The assailants were in military uniform, armed with guns, machetes, attacked developers and absconded. But some of them gathered courage, and the reprisal attack led to the arrest of some military men. Now, you will hear them soon, and you can appreciate what it means to the Ghana Armed Forces or the Ghana Police Service for some of their members to be overpowered by ordinary citizens. Now, listen to this. March 2021, Ewutu Kwaubonze in the central region. And the last one, which will end this segment, was in August 2020. A group of so-called military men went to a community called Obom Domiabra constituency in the Greater Accra region, and there was a dispute between Achim Apedja in the eastern region and 20 communities in Greater Accra. And it's pathetic to see armed, uniformed military personnel being attacked. And you would also notice from their narration that there seemed to be some communication gap. And that is what makes it very worrying. Now listen.
The leader didn't ask that question to find out, what am I doing? Am I a criminal or what? I came here on my own. They didn't ask. What they do is that they just keep on beating me. Meanwhile, the leader came there and we informed him that we are not criminals. We didn't come there illegal. So if you have anything, exercise patient, lead us to the chief or wherever you lead us, then you continue. But they met us on the way and started beating us. Me, as you are beating me, I've not done anything wrong. Two of our work is that you give warning shot. When they stop, then the leader and our leader will sit down and talk. But this one didn't happen like that. They came to us, come and attack us, say that we came here voluntarily. We didn't come here by assignment. We are not soldiers. Master, as I'm telling you, I'm a soldier. I'm a soldier. I can show you my ID card.
Your name and your command.
I'm Asarado Clement. I'm in headquarters. Anything more?
So that's a summary of some few incidents that give you a reflection about Ghanaians becoming angry, Ghanaians who have lost confidence in our security agencies, abuse, provocations by security men. And don't forget that there have been lots of incidents in the mining communities, lots of incidents of people either in police or military uniform used by state agencies, including the National or the Bureau of National Investigations, now they call it National Investigations Bureau or whatever. And it's obvious that they may not be soldiers. Many of these instances have been at the custody of the police, which is investigating, and we don't know the outcome, which is increasing the public perception about cover-ups. Now the question is, if every part of this country is chaotic, how many policemen can we deploy? How many ordinary security personnel in plain clothes can gather as much information for us? This evening, I'll be doing the conversation with two guests. One is a retired military officer, Captain Joel Kwame, who will join us on this program. In the studio with me is a man I respect so much, Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar. He is the executive director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. I'll tell you a brief about his profile. He has a master's in international terrorism, global crime, and international security from Coventry University in UK, including understudying anti-mafia prosecutors in Sicily, Italy. He's a researcher and has done a lot of outreach programs with vulnerable communities in countering underpinnings of violent extremism and radicalization. He's a Mandela Washington Fellow. He won the African of the Year Award in 2016. He has a tall history as far as his educational background is concerned. He's a product of one of our best universities in Ghana, Ashesi University, Rutgers University, New Brunswick, Mandela Washington Fellowship. That's where he got it. And then we have the Coventry University, where he did his master's degree in international terrorism, global crime, and international security. And he's also was also elected the Security Personnel of the Year 2018 40 Under 40 program. So you are welcome.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
before we walk into the conversation, we'll take a short break.
Sure.
And then when we come back, we'll deal with the issues.
All right.
Thank you.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural. Welcome to the Royal Dazzle Event Center. With a lush and well-maintained lawn and garden, you are assured of the best serene and comfortable atmosphere to organize all your family and social events. Live the royal moments here with friends and family. The hosting capacity of 600 to 800 people makes Royal Dazzle the most versatile of places to host weddings, parties, funerals, conferences, concerts, and many more. Create your memories with us. Call us for inquiries on 055-814-8585 or 024-620-2144, or pass by and speak to any of our friendly staff. Locate us at Myjohn, close to Zoom Lion headquarters. Royal Dazzle Event Center, creating memories.
So this is Ideas Exchange on TVXYZ. Our topic tonight is Ghana's internal security crisis. Is a ticking bomb. In the studio with me is Mutaru Mumuni. Mutar is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Counter-Terrorism. Now, let's start this way. We're talking about security issues, but there is something that is signaling more confusion in the country going forward. 2024 is going to be a crucial elections. NPP says they are going to break the 8, and the narrative suggests that they will do everything to win the elections. The NDC today thinks that, look, the election is already done. Ghanaians have lost confidence. NPP will definitely go. They are only buying time for December 7, 2024. There was an ayawaso. There was a National Peace Council intervention that led to a suggestion that all the political parties should disband their vigilantes, which traveled into the 2020 elections. We saw what happened at Techiman South and other constituencies, and the call for investigations. Only yesterday, the minority in parliament, they are 5 in number, have tabled a private member's motion for parliament to set up investigations into that incident. Now, looking at what is likely to happen in 2024, and the fact that as far back as November 2021, they petitioned the current IGP, and for 6 months, there's been silence, no feedback to the NDC national executives, nor some members of parliament or their lawyers, to the extent that they will go to parliament today to find or bring finality to that. What are the security implications, looking at the volatility of some of the things I've narrated, which we'll look at going into the conversation?
Thank you. Thank you once again for having me on this program for the first time. Yes, it's interesting to listen to the, chronicling all these events characterizing the security of our country. Of course, anyone who has been following, who is deeply interested in the welfare of this country would be very, very worried. In summary, what I would say is that it's a product of impunity or state impunity in the use of office in terms of the security apparatus of our nation. In many ways, these are not things that should feature in our nation's history. For a very long time, we have, safely described ourselves as a stable and peaceful country. And to the extent that we're seeing, security services and security agents used in this brazen manner, it undermines the confidence of our states and state security institutions. Anyone who's following our history knows that the military in this country has been highly, highly regarded for a very long time. We have a very strong, powerful international image in terms of how we have served in several missions all over the world. And internally, there has been some significant level of reverence for our military institutions. Unfortunately, in very recent times, it has significantly changed. And we have to be very, very worried about that. Worried in the sense that if we lose confidence and trust in our military services, it means that we have essentially lost confidence in the states and in state capacity to serve the people.
So that may look like an introductory remark. Now, even before we look at the critical concerns you are raising, I made reference to institutions of state that appear not to be too much interested in addressing critical issues that may have future consequences. Is that a direct security threat?
So what we are seeing is brazen abuse and impunity in terms of use of military on security services. And more impunity inspires more impunity. Your failure to respond appropriately to breaches like this, that we've seen in the past, would only inspire more and more of that.
Now,
for instance, you made references to events that have happened in terms of security breaches.
We will go to that. The reason why I wanted us to quickly address this emerging confusion, that's how I want to describe it, is this. We have the military hierarchy. Parliament as an institution of state has its own powers. But that appears to be trampled down upon by the executive, which has its own issues with the speaker. Today in parliament today, the defense minister boldly said, look, we don't see the need to even in spite of the security or the terrorism threat within the sub-region, give extra security protection to the Speaker of Parliament, i.e. giving him some additional military personnel to at least fortify either his home or his movement. And when we think it is necessary, we'll do that. Yet maybe the Chief Justice or the Finance Minister, the Attorney General, our investigations indicate that there is some security protection, i.e. from the military. Now, when these things happen, and then you have the biggest opposition party losing confidence in the security to the extent that the Speaker now has a number of private security men protecting him, does it augur well for our architecture or a recipe for manipulation by agents which want to destabilize the state? Of
course, these are the ugly play of politics in governance. And this is not something we should expect, because it further deepens the politics and the society of our country. When you conduct yourself in that manner, it clearly deepens the polarization and the politicization of governance. You know, the institution of Parliament is a very, very revered institution, and it's not meant to be partisan in the way we have seen it, play out. And so, for a speaker, it doesn't matter which party he comes from. The speaker is meant to be accorded with the highest level of respect and support and protection. And so if you have a defense minister or any minister of governance, showing partisanship in the way they respond to the needs, that's highly unfortunate. And I want to make a reference to a previous statement in terms of these things, what it implies, for us in the future. We all know, anyone who is fully knows that the stakes are very, very high for 2024 elections. It's very high for the opposition NDC, it's very high for the ruling party NPP. And this is because the things that we're looking at are going to play out very uniquely. Probably for the first time in the history of this country, we'll have an outcome that has never happened before. If, for instance, we have the former president being elected, this will be the first time we've had the president who has lost elections and come back to win elections again. If we have, the ruling party winning again, this will be the first time we have had a ruling party extending, going beyond the 8 years. And of course, they've made it a mantra, talking about breaking the 8, and it seems to be their, the concentration of the party and its followers. So these two things, makes the 2024, a very, very highly.
What do you think could push Ghana into what many security analysts admit is some high level of internal security crisis, to the extent that people can now be so much emboldened and can openly attack divisional headquarters of police stations, overpower armed, uniformed military personnel, even hand over them to the police with some skepticism that there could be cover-up? What could trigger this?
It's clearly we are seeing a loss of reverence and loss of deterrence. The absence of deterrence in terms of the citizens' relationship with the police, with the security services. And it's because of the conduct of the security services for several years. And so if we have breaches of security and the response of the state is that poor, you're going to have more impunity, subsequently. If you see the incidents of Ayawaso, and you set up a panel of experts, very, very respected individuals and men of this country. They produce a report, recommendations in terms of how to cure this once and for all. And it's completely, absolutely, completely dismissed. It tells you how brazen, the state regards these things. It is only going to inspire more and more of those things. Today, a lot of people within the opposition are expressing views that implies that they are not going to rely on state security when it comes to future elections. And they may just be justified to say that. Because if you have Ayawaso, situation, and no any serious security deterrent measures are meted out, if you have in Nkwaranza, if you have what happened in Parliament,
or at Techiman
South,
which is still pending,
and we haven't seen any serious, comprehensive investigations and measures to ensure that deterrence measures are meted out, people are punished for security breaches, we're going to have more and more.
Who would you blame, or what key stakeholders would you hold responsible?
First of all,
assuming that things get out of control, you made reference to one point. I've also heard very prominent people who are members of the opposition at that highest level who say we are no more going to the Supreme Court. Like you said, we don't trust the security agencies. This time, we'll make sure that we'll prepare very well and face off with anybody, whether they are thugs put in military uniform or police uniforms, because incidents of such nature have not been addressed. But there are very key stakeholders. Peace Council, they've lost confidence in them. Christian Council, they've lost confidence in them. Statesmen, opinion leaders, people who can speak out to the conscience of either the IGP or the CDS or the army commander, etc., etc. Everybody's quiet. Who do you hold responsible as we might?
So, security and peace or stability is the duty of every citizen. And all stakeholders, including all these institutions you have mentioned, are part of that architecture to ensure that we have peace and stability. But when it comes to direct security like we are talking about, I would definitely hold the police institution directly responsible for that. Of course, we know that it's very simplistic to say that, because largely their role and actions are dictated to by the executive of the day. And that is what we have seen play out in many ways. But that does not take away the fact that you're still on your own. You lead an institution, you sign up for a service, a duty, you have a duty to fulfill that. Now, and I say that, and I need to add this to it, in terms of validating the point that they are dictated to by the executive of the day. The police administration is run or is headed or presided over by the board, the police council. And the police council, the composition of which is clearly and completely a political composition. Now, and that does not provide a good sense of independence for the police to do their job independently.
That's a good point. I share with you the concerns, but we'll be playing back some of the videos while the conversation goes on. And I want you to watch as they appear on the screen. Now, if you look at the action of the young men, either they are working or they are people who simply feel that there's a missing gap. And it has happened at Akachi, in Kranza, Wa. I made reference to Accra, Sukura here, and there have been several of them I deliberately didn't add because to be a tall list. But between June and going back into May, we have about 7 incidents of either attacks or clashes. Is it reflecting a group of people who have decided to take the law into their own hands, or institutional failures that must partly be blamed?
So, you want to know whether it's the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken. Is it a product of state security failure or impunity, on the part of citizens who just choose to take the law into their own hands? Both, play a role, and depending on what the incident is. We need to have a security institution that is proactive, that is deterrent in the way they handle security matters, to build a good sense of, goodwill and trust with the local community. For a very long time, beyond politics, we know that the security establishment in this country is one of the very institutions. There's a report that points to the fact that for every 10 situations, for 7 out of those, when you are in a security situation, you are not going to call the police or the state. You're going to call somebody else. Either your friend, your family member, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, or somebody else, but not the state. And that underlines the level of mistrust and lack of confidence in state security systems.
Now, if you look at what happened at Sukura, you would have realized that whether they are proper soldiers or fake soldiers, somebody knelt down and was telling the mob that if you are a man, come forward. If you look at the incident at Ejura and the committee that sat in the open, the recommendations, training issues, and so on, would you say people are exploiting the porous situation we have by using thugs in military uniform or police uniform for such actions, or the recruitment and the training processes are simply that bad and those in the service know and cannot talk?
So it's both and more. So some of the incidences we're looking at, some of them are some officers within the service who were not properly trained or not properly recruited, and so are not meant to be there. And so,
and on the screen now, as you speak, is the gentleman whether proper soldier or fake, on the screen.
As though it's a reenactment of what happened in Nigeria. It tells you that we are not learning the lessons of our experiences. Otherwise, this should not have been happening. So we have officers in the services who are not meant to be there. They are not properly recruited. They didn't come through the right channels. They were not properly trained, and so would not deliver what they are supposed to deliver. There are others too who are clearly not part of the services, and they are, take military uniforms and take military accoutrement used by agents to perpetrate this violence. And both situations undermine the image of security services. What I expect to happen is, whether they are part of the system or not, we expect to see a very severe level of deterrence in terms of their response to these things. Otherwise, we're going to embolden more and more people doing same things, and it gets to a point where, everything falls off, and all of us will have to pay for that.
Now, what do you pick among the security circles from disgruntled military personnel who feel they have been cowed to keep quiet, and as you pick information, recruitment of people who are not qualified en masse, and they give them short trainings and put them out, denigrating the image of the institution? Are you picking some of this information?
Oh, of course.
And for you and your groups, how do you want to manage this? Do you have that interface with government?
If you interact enough with security services, these things you're talking about are very common within the service. A lot of them, still know these are the wrong things happening, and yet they are not able to speak out on these things. So it's clearly, these are things that are happening.
So I will come back to you, because I told our audience that we are speaking to Captain Retired Joel Kwame Sowu. He's a senior citizen, a statesman. For many of you who don't know, he has seen it all. This man is older than Ghana. He has seen independence. He has seen all the coups. In fact, he himself, he will say it if he has the opportunity. He has been jailed before and sentenced to death. God saved him. And today, he speaks as a Ghanaian who wishes to see the best, a disciplined nation, before he departs us to the Maker, which we don't pray for now. Captain, you are welcome.
Hello.
Yeah, Captain, good evening.
Good evening, Eric. How are you?
I'm fine. Captain, now,
yes.
Let me go straight to the point. I'm sure you've monitored the conversation if you have the privilege to sit by your TV set this evening. But
yes,
when you watch videos of ordinary civilians disarming armed soldiers, beating them to pulp, handing over them to the police, as a former military personnel or officer, how do you feel?
Yeah, Eric, if you have a tree and you don't want that tree anymore, you cut it from the roots, or you just cut the branches?
You cut it from the roots.
Right. All these discussions we are having, we've always had it throughout the various governments that we've had in this country. But have we sat down as a people to find out why do we continue having these things? I'll tell you. Let me take my time slowly for every citizen in this country to understand. Listen, the constitution that we have is a source of most of the major problems we have in this country. We went and took American system of government and combined it with the Westminster type of government and say we have a government. So at one stage, we do not know where to go, because the American system is such that they have the institutions that will make sure that if you are a president of America, you can't do whatever you like. Trump is an example. But here, we have boxed everything together. That's number one. Number two, do we have a state of Ghana devoid from the government of Ghana? Governments come to administer the institutions that we have, and they come and they go. But the state is there forever. But do we have a state of Ghana that is there forever? If you have a state which is a solid state, all these things that we are having, I'm telling you, 90% of them will vanish like smoke.
Okay, so Captain, that's good for the preamble. The question is...
Let me explain. Number one, you have the Ghana Armed Forces. The role of the Ghana Armed Forces is to defend the territorial integrity of this nation. You have the police force. That should be a police service. Not what I'm saying. We have a police force. That should have been a police service. So all internal security issues must be handled by the police. And there used to be a procedure that if there is any internal security matter, it is the police that will be the first port of call. It is only when they cannot handle the situation anymore. We have a standby battalion. We have a standby companies that are ready for internal security matters. So if the police say there is a situation we cannot handle, please help us. There are procedures they will follow and do it. I'll give you one example. You remember WA?
Yes.
Right. When the WA incident happened, they called me and I told them that, listen, all these incidents that are happening, who is the security head in the district? Who is the security head in the region? There are politicians who know nothing about security. And they give instructions. And the military, we are trained to take instructions. So if you have a civilian who had no clue about a situation and cannot do appreciation of the situation.
Captain, respectfully, because we don't have much time and we are doing an agreed number of minutes with you, I wanted us to look at the critical issues. Soldiers beaten to pulp, disarmed, sent to the police, they go back to the barracks. What signal does it send to the Ghana Armed Forces?
No, you can. What was the question?
The question again is, when you hear or see videos of soldiers beaten to pulp, disarmed by ordinary civilians, soldiers doing landguardism when they must be in the barracks, how does this worry you as a retired military officer?
You see, I was trying to give you the answer in what I'm saying, that in every district there is a district security organization. Every region we have a RECSEC. And therefore the person who is in charge of security in the district is the head of the district security. And that person is a civilian. He's not a military guy. He can tell the soldiers do this, and soldiers, and I told you, that is
you are simply saying that the Ghana Armed Forces, the Ghana Police Service, they are not independent. They are serving politicians of the day. Is that what you are saying?
When the CDF is appointed, he goes to show allegiance to the president, who is a civilian, who is supposed to be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And therefore, you find in the district there is an issue. The regional commander decides to tell the military guys in this case, go and do this. They cannot refuse, because that is what is in the we have called for ourselves. And you find the CDS sitting somewhere, he wouldn't know that a regional minister or a district chief executive has given instructions to the police or to the military in his area to go and do A, B, C, D. And I was trying to give you the reasons why we are having these issues.
So, Captain,
because if things are properly in place, a proper request would have been made to the military to do this or that, because internal security matters are preserved of the police. That is the first place.
Right. So, Captain, my last question.
Before you ask the question, the IGP should come and tell us that he cannot handled the internal security matters in this country. If he says that, then we can go forward and know what to do. Ask your question.
Okay, so Captain, last, if you can make it brief. Now,
yes.
There have been issues about recruitment into our security agencies. When
yes.
you talk to top military personnel on the quiet, some of them openly express concern about how people come in, the kind of training they are given, and how fast they are released into the system. They are complaining, they are afraid to talk, and you don't know what really that means. And then you also have the issue of embarrassment, where we have incidents of people being beaten. If you are making any recommendation, briefly, what would you suggest to the CDS today, the Ghana Armed Forces, that's the CDS, sorry, the Army Commander, if you are speaking to the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, in 2 minutes, what would you advise?
What I would tell you is that I've done a program on the Council of State before. The military police, the military and the police and various institutions of state should not be under the presidency. It should be under the Council of State. Because, like I said in my opening remarks, the Council of State, the state is there forever. But the governments come and governments go. They are coming for 4 years, maximum 8 years, and they go. So if they come and mess up the whole state institution, it will take time. So recruitment and all these things, if you are a chief of defense staff, and the president comes and tells you, these 4 people, I want you to recruit them, will you be able to say, he is the commander of the supreme commander of the armed forces? Will you be able to say no? You cannot. Okay. So that is your answer right there. The military should not be under the presidency. The police should not be under the presidency. What do you call it?
The other security agencies.
Revenue collection people should not be under the presidency. There are certain institutions that should not be under the presidency because the president has come into power through a political system, a political party.
All right.
And that political party will be asking him to toe the line.
Okay. So, Captain, I'm so grateful for your time. I believe that in the next few weeks, we should have you in the studio for a longer conversation. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Now, let's look at this scenario. Today, Party A is in power. Party A is manipulating the system. That's why I asked the independence of either the Ghana Armed Forces or the police service and so on. Tomorrow, Party B is in power. Either they are deciding to move the people around or they also bring their own into the system. If our security agencies are politicized, which appears to be today as we speak, what are the ramifications?
The ramifications are that we'll have a failed state eventually. And the conversation we're having,
a failed state?
A failed state is a state that is in a state that is incapable of providing sustenance for its own people.
Are we getting there?
If we don't do anything more than what we're doing, we would get there.
So it means we are getting there.
Today, we are talking about the politicization of various security services. And we'll continue to talk about it. And we had Captain talk about the fact that this thing have been spoken about it for a very long time. We are just talking about the symptoms of the problem. We're not talking about the problems themselves. The problems come from the structure of these institutions and where they drive their mandate from. If you look at the creation of the armed forces, it's governed by the Armed Forces Council. And the Armed Forces Council is headed by the president. If you look at the police service, it's headed by, governed by the police council. And the police council is chaired by the vice president, including the IGP, who's a political appointee, including the Minister of Interior, a political appointee, the Attorney General, and several individuals who are there on the basis of political, appointment. How do you give that? And that particular police council actually give directions and control to the Ghana Police Service.
Let me ask this very let me ask this very controversial question. It will dovetail into the conclusion you want to make because I followed the narrative. There's coup. There's mutiny. can there be a mutiny tomorrow? Because you are looking at antecedents, incidents in other countries. And I'm looking at your background. Your background as somebody who has done extensive study in what we call, how do you call it, global crime and international security from, let me just do it here. I beg your pardon. Quickly. Yes. You have done research with vulnerable communities encountering underpinnings of violent extremism and radicalism. That is one aspect. And then you have also done a lot of work on how some of these incidents happen. Now, to paraphrase it, if it is getting to a stage where, let's say in the army, the police, the immigration service, etc., think that, look, we swore to serve the state. We think that our commanders are allowing themselves to be manipulated, assuming that is it. And they decide to disobey orders in the interest of the average Ghanaian. It has happened in other countries. Mali is one recently. Can it happen in Ghana?
Traditionally, that's how many of the coups happen. It's usually out of the frustration and anguish of junior officers who know clearly that their leadership is being manipulated. And because they are unable to speak up or stand up to leadership, the angry younger officers often take the lead to do these coups. If you look at recent history and even before, you often have fine younger people, captains and lesser ranks, doing these things. And of course, we could get to that point where this would happen, because very honestly, when you speak to people within the governing circles in security institutions and non-security institutions, you would find a lot of this opinions in terms of
this concern being shared,
frustrations
so why
being shared.
Is it that nobody appears to be pressing the button today that enough is enough? Let's stop. Let's build confidence. 2024 is around the corner. The stakes are high, and don't let anybody exploit today's situation.
I think we are already having that conversation. People are talking and talking about it. The important thing that is not happening is who is listening. Are the right people listening? And this boils down to leadership.
Who are the right people?
The president is the most powerful person in this country, and the Constitution provides that. If you've read many things in terms of what the president is able to do. The president is so powerful that he's the one who can decide life and death for any citizen in this country. And so these concerns are being shared. People are getting frustrated and worried about the ramifications of these things going forward, especially into elections. The only single person who can change that is the president. And your president's actions, inspire or shape the conduct of his team. If we're not having it happen,
to the camera,
if you're not seeing it happen, it means that there will be dangerous consequences for all of us. We saw when the Nkwaranza incident happened, the Chiman incident happened, and in one of those we have a minister of state or senior officer characterizing that as criminals, people who died in exercise of their franchise, people who died in the process. Nobody even spoke to the issue in terms of how bad, how wrong this was. They described it as, criminals who got killed in the process. And the moment a leader spoke in that sense, everybody else began to speak in that manner, dismissing the legitimacy or the rightness of these things. And so the leader has the most powerful duty to help shape the conduct of his team. If we don't have the president speak to these matters, I'm telling you, we can't continue to speak forever and nothing may happen.
Well, this is Ideas Exchange, TVXYZ. We just listened to Mutaru Mumuni Mukhtar, is Executive Director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. And of course, earlier we also had a telephone conversation with Captain Retired Joel Kwame, who also sounded very blunt on some of the issues. Now, with the last 8 to 5 minutes tricking down to the end of this program, I'll try to pick about 2 or 3 calls while we wrap up on the conversation. Now, you are into counter-terrorism, and one of the things I noticed that I followed this on the U.S. Embassy website because it looks like they place a lot of value on you because of the work you have done within the sub-region. One issue is vulnerable communities encountering underpinnings of violent extremism and radicalism. Today, the National Investigations Bureau is talking about terrorists hanging around our borders. There is the suspicion that it is another way of creating that perception. Then in 2024, they'll close all the borders and take advantage of it to deprive people who are most likely to vote for their opponent because that's their stronghold, and it is a recipe for chaos because of what happened in 2020 or prior to 2020 registration and the elections and so on. Now, when you sit back and look at the volatile situation today, what do you think should be the processes towards building confidence, putting the nation together, and ensuring that we'll have some peace as we march into 2024?
I would start with the issue of radicalization and vulnerable communities or violent extremism. Of course, in the last 4 weeks, we've had a lot of conversation in the air about terrorism and the possibilities that there could be attacks here. And we released the report on the 8th of last month. And the report was about, assessing Ghana's exposure to violent extremism, looking at both internal and external sources. This is the closest Ghana has come to in terms of our exposure to violent extremism. The threat of attacks, terrorism has been moving towards us from the Sahel, the Sahelian countries, including Mali, Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso. And all our neighbors in the west and east and the north have had attacks now. Over 53% of all West African countries are experiencing attacks currently. Ghana is the only country within this space, within the sub-region, that is yet to experience attacks. But the attacks have come so close, closer than it has never been before. And if you look at the internal dynamics in terms of our vulnerability to extremism, it is very, very high. You look at the issue or the existence of prolonged unresolved chieftaincy and ethnic conflicts. It's very pervasive. Ghana has a huge number. We are talking about over 352 unresolved chieftaincy conflicts. We have Boku, which is a daily, occurrence right now in terms of the violence and killings. And its proximity to the theater of violence in West Africa is very, very troubling. In our report, we made reference to the Global Terrorism Index that reveals that over 97% of all terrorism fatalities between 2019, 2020 happened in countries that are already having conflicts. And it tells you that if you have existing unresolved conflicts, terrorist groups can exploit it. They have a high exploitative capacity.
So it's a good point, but anytime I listen to the narrative, I get the impression that terrorist groups appear to be aliens somewhere and they are not in Ghana.
They are not aliens.
Now, the reason why I am making or using the word advisedly aliens is that I've seen posts where people say if the level of abuse in Ghana, the level of impunity gets to its peak, people can automatically be radicalized without getting that direct access to the extremists, and that is when they begin to do things to score or settle scores.
We are all encouraged to be patriotic citizens and very positive of our nation. There are many things we cannot or should not say publicly. But the reality of what you're saying, and together with others, has exposed our country so much in terms of the tendency that we would have individuals within who could, engage in violence or terrorist violence, who could be exploited, recruited, and all that. We have at least 12 people, 13 people who have left to join terrorist groups. We have intervened to stop at least 22 others from leaving to join terrorist groups. You look at when you were cataloging the events and incidents happening here, I was just, thinking in my head and getting worried about these things, because terrorists are having a recce in this country, what we call a recce, reconnaissance, work in this country. They are collecting data, incidents that are happening. And there are things, if I show you, you get more worried about the actual reality of these things happening here. And the more they watch and study these things, the more the country becomes very vulnerable, because they can tell that your response to incidents are very, very poor. That puts you in a very weak situation, and they could exploit that. There are several incidents internally in terms of our vulnerability to attacks that should worry anyone who is leading any security effort in this country.
As we wrap up, if you look at the chronology of events that I catalogued in my preamble to the conversation, I made reference to June 7, which was in Boku, which started yesterday, renewed fighting, heavy weaponry use. June 4, which was the Zamrama line, Sukura incident, June 1st, that's all 2022, where angry youth stormed the police and attacked them. In Kranza, where a whole divisional and district headquarters was attacked. Then you come to April 9, 2022, Akachi Volta region, 2 were shot dead when they attacked the police station. Then January 2022, in Tonso, Ashanti region, where irate youth attacked the police officers and so on and so forth. Should I be afraid as a Ghanaian today?
You should be.
Being very frank. Now, you are going to look into the camera and in response to your question, advise the president, advise the IGP, the CDS, any other person who is or has direct influence on our security, including Parliament.
I think that, I mean, all of us who are following developments should be very worried. And I sincerely think that the president and his team are equally worried. And so they may want to reconsider how they respond to incidents. If you follow what we call the anatomy of violence, it's a consistent pattern of unresponsiveness to grievances of the state or citizens. And so when you see people take the law, so to speak, into their own hands, it's a product of unresponsiveness of state institutions or individuals who are meant to respond to grievances. And we see it play out more and more and more. So when grievances are not appropriately responded to, they lead to dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction can lead to more grievances. They can lead to anger. Anger can lead to violence, and the cycle gets repeated. That's what we're seeing happening in all instances. And we have come to a point where leadership, of course, they've always said that leadership is cause and everything else is the effect of leadership. We want to see the president speak to these matters like never before, in a manner that inspires a lot of confidence and a lot of support within the local population. Of course, leaders can always reinvent themselves, irrespective of how low they are in the eyes of the public. If you're a true leader, you can always find a way to engineer yourself and command the support and goodwill of the people. And I believe that our president has that capacity, and this is the best time to do that. There's never, any better time than now, given the public widespread frustration.
How is he going to do it?
I mean, he has all the channels. He has all traditional, channels of communication. He can meet anybody. There's nobody in this country that he wants to meet, he cannot meet or speak to, he would not be able to speak to. He has the public to speak to. He has all the channels to explore. And I believe that if he's watching, his leadership, his team is watching and following incidents, this is a worrying time. And the president needs to speak. We need to get that sense of goodwill to be able to move forward and have a good sense of, assurance that 2024 would be a peaceful incident in terms of elections for all of us. Okay,
thank you very much. Unfortunately, it appeared as if the time was running very fast. Mukhtaru Mumuni. Mukhtaru is the executive director of the West Africa Center for Counter-Terrorism. We also spoke to Captain retired Joel Kwame. So we also give us some overview of how the military should be taking recent development. As we speak, there is a stalemate. The stalemate is very simple. One side of the house says, if you want to investigate election violence, go as far back as 1992. Another group says that in Kranza or Techiman South will not happen again. And as we speak, 5 MPs, MP for Sawase, Mohammed Muntaka Mubarak, MP for Bolga East, Dominic Ayene, who's a lawyer, Akachi South, Bernard Ahiafo, Buem MP, Kofi Adams, and MP for Salaga South, Zuera Ibrahima, have tabled a motion in Parliament and want to see how things will unfold, whether the police will avail itself and make its officers go and respond to issues, if the CDS will respond appropriately, if there will be attempts to frustrate them. All this will tell how we are going to witness incidents, either for registration or the next general elections. That's how I want to wrap up. Pray for Ghana. My name is Eric Ahenyo, and thanks all for the time.